introduce in a minute. It's really hard. We go around the nation, and I found myself in Texas saying to Ben, here we go again. Well, here we go again. My condolences to his mother and to his father. I was going to list all the family, but you guys have big families down here. So I'll leave it at his grandmother, his brothers, his sisters, his girlfriend. My condolences. We're here, and this time the call was a little bit different. Usually it's Reverend Sharpton and Ben Crump reaching out saying, we need help. And of course, I help. But this time, I spoke to Jesse, and Jesse said he needs help. And I said, I'll help. And it was me calling Ben Crump, and Ben Crump calling Reverend Al Sharpton. And, it went the opposite way this time. But we should never forget why we're here. We're here to mourn, but we're also here to celebrate. But we should never forget how we got here. And it's how we got here that's the problem. Policing in America is sick. That's the fact. Amen. And I'm a former police officer. And the illness shows itself with different symptoms. And sometimes those symptoms are racism. But other times the symptoms that we need to treat are when a deputy is fired for not turning on his body camera instead of fired for shooting an unarmed 17-year-old. Most states, we don't even have body cameras, but when we do have body cameras, they're thrown in a drawer, and you can't get them. Even as a lawyer, you can't get them. So there's no point in having body cameras if we don't have transparency. The way that we will solve the problem, or at least really put a dent in the problem, is when policing actually becomes a profession. Right now, it is run as a Boys and Girls Club. It's run as a special interest club.
Right.
But it's time that we bring national standards to a profession, because that's what professions have, national standards. Professions have accountability with accreditation. But we don't have that here. Hopefully, Hunter and his untimely death will finish what Hunter's brother, George Floyd, and his death started. And that is a movement towards accountability. If the Senate doesn't want to act and pass George Floyd Justice of Policing Act, then we need to lean on the executive to do that. If the Senate doesn't care about everyone's children, then we need to lean on the executive to do more. Amen. President Biden could be reaching out to his Attorney General to set policy for national standards, even if the legislature doesn't act. And we need to do that because we have George Floyd, a black man, Pamela Turner, a mentally ill black woman, Christian Hall, a 19-year-old Chinese boy, and now Hunter Brittain, a 17-year-old white boy, all laid at President Biden's feet. I call on him to respond. I call on him to lead. I call on him to join Ben Crump, myself, Reverend Al Sharpton, the Brittain family, the Floyd family, to finally make changes. Because it's only with these changes that we're going to have some measure of peace. Thank you to this family, my family now, going forward. Now there's somebody I want to introduce you to, and that's Benjamin Crump. He's an attorney. And he always answers to a higher calling, and that is why I walk with him into all these battles. You all know him, so.
Thank you to Devin Jacobs, one of the finest lawyers I've ever had the honor of working with in America. Give him another round of applause. You know, when Devin called me and Jesse Brittain, Hunter's uncle, and was talking about his mother, Becky, and saying that Hunter was a good boy and he did not deserve to be taken like this. And so we need justice for Hunter. And they asked, would I help? And I told Devin, when George Floyd was killed unjustly because a police officer kept his knee on his neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds, and they needed a voice, Reverend Al Sharpton, Attorney Devin Jacob, and so many other people of goodwill, we went to Minneapolis to say that George Floyd, life matters. And then when Breonna Taylor, a young black woman, was killed in the sanctity of her own apartment unjustly by the police, and her family called asking if we would help them give a voice. Jesse, we went to Louisville, Kentucky to proclaim that Breonna Taylor, life matters. And when Christian Hall, a Asian American teenager, was killed on a bridge in Pennsylvania, Attorney Reverend Al Sharpton, my brother, Attorney Devin Jacob, and myself were summoned by his family to give a voice nationally. And we all proclaimed that Christian Hall, life matters. And now, brothers and sisters, we are here on July 6, 2021, because when Jesse Brittain and his mother Becky Payne, his uncle Harley Brittain, and so many others here in the state of Arkansas called saying we needed to give a national voice over the tragic killing of a 17-year-old white teenager in Roanoke, Arkansas, we came here today to all proclaim in unity that America, President Biden, the governor of Arkansas, and people all over the world would stand up with us and say, Hunter Brittain, life matters. Hunter Brittain, life matters. Hunter Brittain, life matters. Hunter Brittain, life matters. Say it with me. Hunter Brittain, life matters. Hunter Brittain, life matters. Hunter Brittain, life matters. One more time, because And so without further ado, before I bring up a man who truly needs no introduction to eulogize our brother Hunter. Hunter should be preparing for his senior year in high school. But he's dead in this casket. Hunter should be preparing to try to summon up all the courage to ask his girlfriend, Madison Matthews, to the senior prom. But he's lying dead in this casket. Hunter should be preparing to have his final year of high school to where he will be ready to graduate with you all in the class of 2022. But he is here lying dead in this casket. And because he is not here, we all have to unite together and make sure people all over America know that we will get justice for Hunter Brittain. And so I've called on my mentor, who always answers the bell, no matter whether it's a person who have suffered injustices anywhere in America, whether they're black, white, Latino, Asian. He has always answered the bell. And after Devin and I got off the phone talking to Jess, and they said they want to make sure that this isn't swept under the rug. Right. That people all across America will know the name of Hunter Brittain. Like when I needed help with George Floyd, with Breonna Taylor, with Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and so many others. I called America's civil rights leader to make sure he used all his resources and all his platform to be able to elevate Hunter Brittain's life, because we have to pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And as Philonise Floyd, his brother, and I talked this morning, and he offered his condolences to the family, he understood that his brother's blood would be on that federal legislation. He understood that Breonna Taylor's blood would be on that federal legislation. And now we declare that it has to be meaningful legislation that the United States Senate must pass, because Hunter Brittain's blood is going to be on that legislation. And we have to keep his name elevated. We have to keep his name elevated. And that's why we need America's civil rights leader to come to Arkansas to eulogize Hunter Brittain. So, Reverend Packer, we can keep Hunter Brittain's life elevated. So please join me in welcoming America's civil rights leader, the Reverend Al Sharpton.
Thank you, Attorney Ben Crump, who's been such a light in darkness for so many, for so long. To my friend and brother, Attorney Jacobs, and my fellow member of the clergy, but more importantly, to the family of this young man that we come to celebrate his life. Noah Hunter Brittain, to his grandmother, Miss Becky, to Uncle Jesse, to Rick, to all of the family, Harley, his mother, father. let me say before I take the text, when I got the call from Attorney Crump, and he said that there was an unarmed teenager killed in Beebe, Arkansas. I said, really? He says, yes. He says, and I talked to the family, and they would like you to come. I said, all right. He said, let me tell you from the outset, it may be controversial to some. I said, why will it be controversial? He says, well, because it's in outside of Little Rock, in a little town. I said, no, I never heard of BB, but I never heard of Ferguson, Missouri when I went for Michael Brown. I never heard of a lot of places I went. He said, and he was a white young man. I said, well, then we must go. Because the issue of policing is not about black and white, it's about right and wrong. I said to one of my assistants, this was going into the 4th of July weekend, I said, call one of our board members who usually helps us. He helped us with some of our other cases, see if we can get his plane to go down there. He came back a couple hours later. He said, I don't think we can do it. I'm going to call Crump. I said, why? He said, we can't find anyone with a plane. I said, have you ever heard of Delta Airlines? He said, well, there are no direct flights. I said, have you ever heard of connecting flights? Whatever we have to do, I want to be there because I want his family to know, like other families, that we don't just come for one race. We come for what is right. I do not minimize racism in the country. Many things are racist. Some things are class. I don't know if Hunter was in a rich neighborhood with a certain clothes on that night, driving a certain car, whether this policeman would act in that way. I don't know what the reason is, but I do know an unarmed 17-year-old young man should have been given the benefit of due process and not be shot down and be considered guilty until proven innocent. I do know that the purpose of having body cameras is not to turn them on after you shoot. If you had enough time to decide to shoot, you had enough time to turn on the body camera and show us what you were shooting about. God said to me, I stayed overnight in Little Rock. God said to me, Rev Al, I saw on Twitter some guy said that Rev Sharpton's going to BB to get publicity. And I told him, you always go, whether it's publicity or not. I said, don't defend me. I am going to BB to get publicity. I want the whole world to know the name of Hunter Brittain. And if my comment can help bring some publicity, then that's what I'm supposed to do. I don't apologize for that. In the book of St. Luke, 10th chapter, I want to read just a few verses that will explain how I feel. It says and I'm reading from the New International Version, Reverend. It says that on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Said, "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love thy Lord your God with all thy heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But I wanted to justify himself. He said, "And who is my neighbor?" And Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. And when he was attacked by robbers, they stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So to a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, he passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him, went to him and bandaged his wound, pouring an oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave it to the innkeeper, saying, "Look after him, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense." Jesus called him the Good Samaritan. The lesson I want as the eulogy for this young man, Hunter, to all of his friends and his high school buddies, is you are not tested by if you help those that you are like. You are not tested by those that you know well. The story of the Good Samaritan is that the first one, Jesus said, that passed the man that had been afflicted and had been robbed and had been beaten was of his same religion. Saw him bruised, saw him beaten, but he kept walking on the other side. Then a man came of his own race, a Levite, one that would go to the same kind of worship and same eating habits and same family background. But the Levite of his same kind looked at him wounded and passed and went on the other side. But then a Samaritan came of a different race, of a different background. In fact, the Levites and the Samaritans didn't get along. They were fighting, they were feuding, they were just about enemies. But the Samaritan stopped and saw the man beaten, saw the man bruised, saw the man robbed. And Jesus said that the Samaritan stopped and did what the priest didn't do and the fellow Levite did, and he helped that man. I don't know what day will be my last day. I don't know when I will face the judgment. But I do know that a man from Arkansas, Bishop F.D. Washington, licensed me to preach. And he told me that there will be a judgment. And I don't know who will be there in the judgment, and God knows I've made mistakes in my journey. But I hope that on that judgment day, when they list the things I might have done wrong, that Miss Becky can stand up and say he came of a different race and a different time, and he stood up for my grandson like the Good Samaritan.
Right ahead.
Young folks, your character will be judged by doing what challenges you. Your character will be judged by stepping outside of your comfort level. Your character will be judged by doing what may be difficult, but you know is right. Your character will be judged by standing up, even if you have to stand up alone sometime. Your character will be judged by raising your voice when others are silent. Your character will be judged by saying that I don't care what they say. I'm going to stand up for the Justin Brittans of the world. I don't care who doesn't like it. He does not deserve this. People don't have to qualify for justice. Justice ought to be given to everybody. People should not rationalize things, and we need to condemn wrong no matter who is wrong. It's wrong for those teenagers that are killing each other in Little Rock, and it's wrong for those policemen that shoot first and ask questions later. Wrong is wrong whether you have on blue jeans or blue uniforms. Wrong is wrong is wrong is wrong. So I come to encourage you to keep marching, keep standing up, keep going to the county house and the state house and the police station and stand up. We may not agree on politics, but that don't matter. This is above politics. If you are for Trump, wear your Trump button, but keep marching. If you for Biden, wear your Biden button, but keep marching. I don't care who you are, who you support. All of us want to see our children come home at night safe and protected. Lastly, I want the family to know that we'll be there not only today, but anytime you need us, we're there. And I'm going to take your name with us wherever we go. I'll be in Washington later this week, and I'm going to talk about justice because I don't want this to be forgotten. I'm going to talk about Hunter because I don't want this to be something that is a one-day affair. And I'm so glad to see these young people right here in BP that are marching and protesting and keeping Hunter's name alive. And lastly, I want to say that Attorney Crump told me that all Hunter had in his hand was an antifreeze can. And maybe that's the message Hunter left us with. We need to break the frozen hearts that separate us. Maybe that's Hunter's message to us. That we've been frozen in our own race. We've been frozen in our own class. We've been frozen in our own zone. We've been frozen at our own comfort level. I believe that today Hunter is calling for us. It's time for some antifreeze. Get out of your frozen place.